Welcome to another episode of the podcast here. We are doing the backstory of one of our upcoming guests, and we're looking forward to having you on the Well Wave Now podcast. So, our guest today is Kristine Genovese, and it's great to have you on the show, Kristine.
Breck, I'm so excited to be here with you and Tim. We had such a great initial conversation that I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to speak with your listeners.
Yeah, we're excited for you to speak with them as well. And before we go into the full episode with you, we like to do a little backstory and learn more about you as an individual and how you got to where you are today. So, where did you grow up, and what was it like?
Oh gosh, well, with the last name Genovese, I think I have to give a slight explanation. I'm originally from New York City, as is my family heritage. And so Genovese, I do come by the name Spiritual Gangster, pretty honestly. My great great uncle was the Vito Genovese. There was a movie made recently, Alto Nights, that didn't put him in such a favorable light. So I am determined to bring light to that name. So originally from New York City, I finished high school in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania, and my mom still, she's a snowbird with me in Florida part of the year, and then she goes back to the Poconos where I finished high school. So I still have some roots there.
Wow. So, were you an only child? Did you have siblings?
Oh, gosh, you want to go everywhere. All right. Well, yes, I have one brother. He lives in New Jersey, and he's got four children. And it was just he and I. I did have a little bit of a challenging growing up. I really do believe that we go through certain things so that we can help others heal, right? We have heal or heal thyself. You have to kind of go through your own set of experiences. And so growing up, my dad, a corporate accountant and auditor, and unfortunately, he was an alcoholic. And back in those days, they didn't treat you for that. They just moved the problem around. So that's why we moved from New York to Connecticut to then the Pocono Mountains. And then finally, he wound up losing his job and having to change careers. And so my childhood was really tough just in terms of the level of mental and emotional and, occasional physical abuse in my household. Certainly not from my mom, but unfortunately from my dad.
So how'd you? So with you and your brother older, your brother younger?
My brother is 3 years younger than me, and so I really had to look out for the two of us. And the days of latchkey kids, that's really the kind of growing up part, right? So my mom worked in a hospital laboratory, managed a laboratory, and wound up taking two jobs to try and compensate for my dad's loss of jobs, so that we wouldn't have too much of a change in our lifestyle at the time. And it just required me to kind of grow up a little earlier.
Anything good aside from your ability to kind of use that to
Mhm.
treat people and help people? Anything else good come out of that? You think from a family standpoint?
Well, my mom is my best friend. And so she's not only snowbirds with me, she actually lives with me for 5 months of the year. And she's an incredible lady. I actually dedicated my book, Healing Through Soul Intelligence, to my mom because she is my favorite roommate and my best friend. And, we've become quite close over the years. And so I feel very grateful to still have her presence in my life and the ability for her to listen. But I do think, growing up, I didn't realize it until I was an adult, but I told my mom, I remember saying, I don't like how I feel when I'm around my dad. And I didn't really know at the time what that meant. I realize now that I've always been empathic. I've had this ability to feel other people's emotions, feel other people's anguish, their pain, and what they were going through. And so I didn't realize at the time, but I was literally feeling my dad's self-loathing and all of the, angst and disappointment and anger and jealousy and all of that stuff that he had within him. And I didn't realize I was taking it on and trying to transmute it either. And so that would cause us a lot of friction. So a lot of good came out of it, right? I'm always whatever happens to you happens for you, not to you. So even though when I look back on those times, there was pretty brutal experiences and, you wish you could undo certain things. I think it's also given me life experience to be able to help other people through similar situations, right? So whether that's been physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, divorce, all of those challenges. I really think that's one of the reasons why we go through, and the divine only gives us what we can handle, right, Tim?
I guess I go back and forth a little bit on that. I'm not sure God gives it. God always gives it to us. Yeah, I think there's a passage in there that says all things will work together for good. To your point, for those who love God and called according to His purpose. But it never
Hmm.
says He gives it all to us. Sometimes it's just a fallen world. Sometimes it's just an attack from the enemy. But it also does say no matter what you have there, He always provides a way out. So I could go a little bit on both ways on that, Kristen.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I've always been the belief that you're not given more than you can handle. You've handled it gracefully and done something wonderful with your life. So, before we get into your professional career, though, we want to hear a little more about you and as a child growing up. Did you play any sports? Were you musical? Were you on stage? What were your extracurricular activities?
Now,
Goodness.
Before Kristen answered, now you guys got me going. I have to go back a little bit.
He's not letting this one go.
No, that's all right. I'm trying to remember the other passages that talks about that. You can do all things through. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So, like I said, I may differ a little bit on whether or not He gives it to us, but the fact that can you get through it? Does He sustain you through it? Does He can He make it work together for your good? Absolutely. So now you can answer that question.
Well, I was always an athlete. That was really my outlet. So I'm very grateful. When you go through something as a kid, a lot of kids will take a darker road, right? Maybe drugs or alcohol or those things. And so for me, I literally escaped through sports. I didn't want to be home. So I played field hockey, I skied, I played softball, and in the summer I was a lifeguard. So I literally had something going on all the time. And I loved field hockey so much that's why I wanted to go to college. I wanted to play professional field hockey. Now, how many professional field hockey players do you know? It wasn't exactly the best decision back then, but it did get me to undergrad. Instead of being able to play field hockey, I wound up becoming freshman class president and being in a sorority and leadership there as well. And so it was overall a really good experience for me.
So where'd you do your undergraduate work at?
Bloomsburg University. It's a state college in Pennsylvania. Yeah, it wasn't too far from home, but it was far enough away that there was some distance. And I can say that right before I went to college, my mom, I said, "Look, Mom, you've got to choose. It's either me and my brother or my dad. We can't live like this anymore." And so the day she decided to put him to task and suggest they get a divorce is the day my dad went to rehab. And so he did clean his life up for a time. And, they managed to stay together for, I think, 54 years before he passed. So
Wow.
they found a way through. And, he did do different things. He did change careers. He was a sign painter for a time, and then he got into being an EMT and a paramedic and tried to serve others through that career. And I think he found some peace in that, being able to help care for other people since he had a challenge caring for himself.
So up to this point in shape, do you think it was that situation that influenced your life the most, or even if that was situation that influenced your life the most, was who within that situation influenced your life? Was it your mother the most? Was it your father being able to say I want to do the opposite, or was it some teacher or somebody else?
Well, my mom showed me unconditional love. Okay. Her staying with my father through thick and thin was an incredible example of that to me. But my dad probably shaped me the most in that, when you grow up with someone who's got a substance abuse problem and they're always projecting, no matter what you do, it's not good enough. Right. And so I wouldn't just meet expectations. I would always seek to exceed expectations to get positive attention. And so that served me really well in my corporate career. I always met or exceeded expectations, always got promotions, rewarded for hard work. I grew up at a time when women hit their head on the glass ceiling, meaning you had to work twice as hard to get the same amount of pay as your male colleagues at the time. And I remember just thinking that women were weak, right? Because we cried and emotions. And so I took on more masculine qualities at work because I thought that's how I had to behave. I remember tending bar in college, carrying 2 cases of beer up 3 flights of stairs just to prove to the guys I could do it. Just silly stuff like that. So it's just kind of interesting when I look back on that. But that belief, of not being good enough and always having to overdo and overcompensate and do more than what's expected takes a toll on you over time. And it certainly did in my personal life. I didn't necessarily choose, life partners, AKA husbands. And I say S, yeah, there were a couple that basically I would overdo and they would underdo. Right. And so I'm like, well, why aren't my needs getting met? This doesn't work. I'm not even on the to do list, let alone, thought. So I decided, I needed to do a lot of healing before I was going to be ready to have another relationship where I could feel whole within myself and be able to be a partner to someone without that emotional enmeshment or self abandonment where, you feel like that person's needs are way more important than your own and you forget about you. And so when they reflect that behavior back to you, you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel good. What am I doing? So, yeah, my whole life has been a wonderful learning experience to prepare me for my healing career.
It's a training ground for sure. So let's get into that. And, what is the essence of the wellness work you do today? And then what do you personally get out of it, Kristen?
Wow. Well, the method that I developed is called the soul intelligence method. And so I think that deserves a slight explanation in that we all can associate with IQ, our intellect. We understand EQ, emotional intelligence, right? The way you say something is equally as important as what you're saying, the intent behind that, amongst other things, but in simple form. And then soul intelligence is really paying attention to that inner knowing. And I really believe that's the eternal part of us, that eternal connection to the divine of all that is, and really being quiet enough to listen to those messages. My method specifically helps people release trapped energy in their body from the mental, emotional, and physical body. And it's founded in the science of bioenergetics, which was founded in the 90s and documented by Dr. Alexander Lowen. Okay, sorry. All right.
We got to save a little bit for the
All
podcast.
right. Well, I do think there's got to be a little bit of explanation for the audience just in terms
Yes.
of, look, right? We're all energy. Okay. We learned that back in elementary school. We're all protons, neutrons, electrons vibrating in this electromagnetic field. So it stands to reason that energy can get trapped in your physical, your mental, and your emotional body. And our cells actually hold trauma. So whether we realize it or not, that's what manifests in the body. When something has been stuck for a very long time, it typically started out as suppressed emotions. So I'm very fortunate to work in the field of integrated and functional medicine, where I partner with healthcare providers, doctors, nurse practitioners, MDs, DOs, all kinds of folks. And we partner on patients that they see to pull the unresolved trauma up and out of the body energetically. So then the body is in a better position to receive a nutraceutical or a pharmaceutical, whatever they need to heal holistically and completely.
And so, what do you get out of doing this work?
Oh my gosh. I get a lot of people who have tried everything. They come to, I'm kind of like, one of the last stops on the Magical Mystery Tour because they've tried everything they can on the spectrum of healthcare. And to see somebody physically change, for example, taking oxygen out of their nose and having color back in their face and sitting up in a chair instead of, detained in a recliner, knowing that you've helped improve the quality of somebody's life. I heard a great expression this weekend. I was actually at a conference that was devoted to treating cancer, in a variety of different ways, holistically, naturopathically, in addition to all interventive therapies and complementary ways to help when people are going through that treatment. And I really love this expression. I believe I'm a hope dealer. And when you can give people hope, that they can heal, they can get better, they can improve the quality of life, you're truly making a difference in the world. And that is probably what lights me up more than anything else. It's what, got me in my field of being a, corporate revenue and turnaround specialist, because it was mostly about the people, putting the right people in the right roles, giving them the right tools, processes, technology, whatever it is to help that business thrive, right? It's always been about making a difference in people's lives. So whether I did that in the field of education or now in the field of functional medicine, it's always been that undercurrent.
So along those lines, what led you to the switch? Because you didn't start out saying I'm going to do this. You, like you said, you went in the corporate world and broke some ceilings and did some good for people, and then you moved over this. So what took you into this world?
So I was in the field of higher education for most of my career. So either working for colleges and universities or services to provide to colleges and universities. And what got me to switch was I got a divine timeout on March 12th of 2020. That date will forever be burned into my brain. And I was on my last corporate turnaround on that day. And I didn't realize it was my last corporate turnaround. I thought it was going to be my swan song and I was going to retire from that company. But it became the last one for a very different reason. It was a Thursday. I was in an oncologist's office with my now husband, and we were finding out that he had prostate cancer. And I got the call from the head of HR letting me know my services were no longer needed. I was the breadwinner. I was the one with the benefits. I was freaking out. Like, I had never been fired in my entire career. I had just gotten a performance bonus. You want to talk about the shock of a lifetime? So I texted my boss, who was the COO, and I said, I just got fired. He said, me too. I'm like, what? So that's not exactly what I said, but you get the. And I realized we had put a board deck together. We were supposed to go to a board meeting. I was due to fly out Monday morning. And we had shown that had we been allowed to hire the appropriate number of staff that we had requested in the fourth quarter, not only would we have met the expectation, we would have exceeded the revenue expectation. But the CEO kept telling us, no, we couldn't hire anyone. He wanted to hold the line on expenses through the end of the year. So he took our board deck, fired the two of us, walked into the boardroom and told the board we didn't hire enough people, and went on a hiring spree. Now, the divine has a way of balancing the scales. Some people call this karma, but he was investigated by the board, removed from office, and then put a crony in his place, and they summarily ran the company into the ground. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist today because I believe the mission of the company was good. It was just the leadership was a little rotten. That gave me, I was given a nice 9-month runway, basically, to figure out, okay, what do I really want to do with my life? And so I got real quiet and I did a lot of prayer and a lot of meditation. And I believe they go hand in hand. I think prayer is sending the ask out and meditation is listening for the answers. So I do think they work together. And that's when the soul intelligence method was born. So how did I get into nutraceuticals? What I decided to do was to take the method and introduce it into a coaching program. So given my network of higher education and executives I had worked with, I put together a 12-week leadership program where I would introduce this methodology at the end of the program. So it's a group program. I was working with middle managers, getting them to the senior leaders to the ready for the C-suite. And then I did some executive coaching. And I did a one-on-one in the beginning where he talked about somebody's energy, where it naturally wants to go. Then we did a traditional coaching session midpoint, like where you are, how are things working with your team, where you want to go, how is it working out, what I can help them move forward. And then about 2 weeks before the end of the program, I would have a conversation with someone. I would say, okay, we can do a traditional coaching program. And we can, just talk about where you're going, what needs to change. Or you could take a risk walk with me and we can get to the root cause of all your problems, why your team's in this position in the first place, why you haven't moved up, and why your home life is falling apart. But you have to take a risk walk with me and do the soul intelligence session. Every single person chose it. So then I knew I was onto something. One of my executive coaching clients happened to be the CEO of the nutraceutical company, Nutritional Frontiers, that I now work for. And he, through the course of our coaching, flipped the script on me and started using my own coaching methods on me and said, you're going to come work for me full time someday. And I was like, no, I'm not. And here I am nearly 5 years later. So it just worked out that it was a great fit. He met me because one of my personal physician is a triple board certified MD and naturopathic doctor, Dr. Lisa Coach, and she actually wrote the foreword to my book. She used nutraceuticals from Nutritional Frontiers as part of her practice. And her endorsement letting me know that this guy found me legitimately online and he was a good guy to coach um, opened the doors for me. And then, certainly I did work for Lisa. I write about that in the book for her whole team, her clients, patients. And that's really how I got into the field of functional medicine between those two people.
It's an incredible story. And it's amazing how life works out, right? Kristen, you seem to be a very positive person. So give our listeners some tips if they're having a challenging day. What do you do to stay motivated?
Well, first of all, I'm a big proponent for feel the feelings. Don't push them down. Don't suppress them because that's what's going to cause dis-ease or dysfunction or a dissonance in your frequency. So get them out in a healthy way. Okay. So whether that's journaling them out, writing them out, whether that's going to work out, whether that's taking a drive in the car with the music blaring, whatever makes you happy, but don't get in trouble speeding or anything. But shift the energy. Okay. One of the things I also do is to put on high vibrational music. And I've got a number of artists that I absolutely love. Anugama is an instrumentalist, and that literally shifts the hertz, right? You can measure music, you can measure emotions, everything's got a frequency. So I love to do that quickly. Get out in nature, right? Get your natural body rhythm to ease back. I'm fortunate that I live in Florida most of the time and I can stroll by the beach when I need a little zhuzh. But just going outside, I also live close to a golf course, so that's very peaceful being in nature and walking in the grass and just changing your energy and your environment. It can be that simple.
So now, as you move forward, you seem like you're kind of living your dream a little bit. But do you still have you have a dream project or anything you want to do at this point?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I'm very, very fortunate that I really feel like I get to make the world healthy, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, in all ways. But what I really want to do and what I really feel called to do, and I think through your podcast, you're helping me do this, is to see if I can get this method in, functional medicine, integrative wellness centers throughout the country. I really would love to see this become also maybe even a part of addiction centers, right? Where people can really shift the energy that's been keeping them locked in place. I would love to be able to continue to spread this work. So I'm called to really train the trainers. I'm working with physicians and nurses and nurse practitioners and others and healers, people who just want to make a difference, to teach them this method so they can help way more people. Multiply it. That's my goal.
Well, we're going to hear some fun facts about you. Are you ready?
All right, let's do it.
All right. Are you more of an early bird or a night owl?
I am definitely more of the night owl. My creativity doesn't kick in until the afternoon.
I understand. This next question is probably a 50-50 split, growing up in the Poconos, but then spending your time in Florida. But do you prefer the mountains or the beach?
Well, I prefer to live at the beach and visit the mountains. I did just get back from Breckenridge. I still love skiing. So that's still something, but it's nice when you can visit for a week and then go back to warm.
Yes, I agree. And one of my favorite resorts, because they dropped the ridge on the ski resort. And so it's just my name. It's Breck.
That's true.
Yeah.
Makes complete sense.
Always have to get a hat or a t-shirt when we go to Breckenridge. Or
That's
Breck
awesome.
Mountain. Yeah. And do you prefer coffee, tea, or something else?
Well, I'm definitely a coffee girl. I actually have this really cool shirt. You asked me earlier, I was an athlete, right? I'm still an athlete. I play competitive tennis. And so I have this really cool shirt that has coffee, tennis, and wine. So it's like 1, 2, 3. Perfect day for me.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for letting us hear more about you and getting your backstory. We look forward to having you on the Well Wave Now podcast show coming up. And for all of our listeners out there, please stay tuned for that episode. We'll be dropping soon. And until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and remember, wellness, it's in you.